Congratulations, you made it to the Exfil. You can sit back and relax, empty your bags, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Mosin man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land of the one taps. Hey there, Mike, aka MTB Trigger here, and with me as always is my co-host Ronald, aka Eric. If you are brand new, welcome. This is an Escape from Tarkov podcast where we talk about all things EFT, and our goal is to get better at the game, so we hope you come along with us on that journey. We love having guests on the show, so we're back at it this week, but before we introduce our guest host this week, let's get our hideout keeping out of the way so we can dive in. As always, there are a number of ways to support the show. The best and biggest one you can do for us is to share it with a friend or somebody who is thinking about playing Tarkov, who's already playing, just started. Share it with somebody you know. That's the best way to help us grow and grow our community. Other than that, like, comment, rate, thumbs up, star, heart, all of the things that you can do to our content on the internet or your app of choice helps tremendously. Thank you for that. And then the last thing I want to plug this week is Exfil Bootcamp. All of our guide videos, we've put a ton of new ones up this week. Everything from new factory guides to the new Prapper tasks on reserve. So make sure and go and check those out. Those are up and live on YouTube. And I believe right before we went live on the show, and I might be stealing Eric's thunder, but a new one just went out on part 2 of the new reserve tasks. So if you're looking for me, the best way to chat with me is either on Discord or on Twitch. I stream a few days a week at MTB Trigger, and anywhere you find me, it's going to be MTB Trigger, so feel free to reach out. But Discord and Twitch are the best ways to do that. But Ronald, how are you, man? And let these fine folks know how they can get in touch with you, man.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Doing great this week. The best way, as always, to get in touch with me would be to send me a DM in Discord with the top of the list next to MTB Trigger in the host section. Go ahead, send me a DM, friend request, whatever. That's the best way to get hold of me. We all spend way too much time on Discord, more than we definitely want to admit these days. You can also follow me on the Twitters at Ronald Gaming, and you can send a DM that way as well. Otherwise, outside of that, if there's something more formal that you'd like to contact us with, you can email the show at xpmedia2020@gmail.com. But that's pretty much it. This week, we're pretty excited. We've got a special guest on the show. Trigger, why don't you tell us all about him?
Oh, well played. You guys, we have the other half of the podcast. That's POG cast for the unfamiliar. He runs the podcast with a previous guest of ours, Veritas. He's also a partnered Twitch streamer and has a boatload of Tarkov content on his YouTube channel. So, Mr. JesseKazam, welcome, man. And the first thing we like to do when we kick off our show is kind of talk about what we've been up to this week in Tarkov. So, I kind of want to ask you, like, what have you been up to this week in the game? And then we'll kind of jump into some of your background with Tarkov. But what have you been up to in game this week, man?
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Yeah, this week I've been working on some quests, working towards Kappa, and I've been kind of focusing down on some of the quests that I always wait and like save to the end because I don't want to do, and then I have all the ones I don't like at the end, and every time. But I've been working on the setup quest, where you have to kill PMCs with a 133 or a 153 on customs, wearing a scav vest and an Ushanka, and it's just the bane of my existence because you can't wear contacts with the Ushanka. You have to wear a scav vest, and shotguns are just my absolute least proficient weapon. So I've been like, the way I do it is I'll buy like 4 shotguns, and then I'll run. If I die every raid, that's 4 raids, and then I just move on for the night. Or I'll just run out of those shotguns and then move on because I just get frustrated. So I've been doing that and then trying to get grenade kills, which is always harder to do when you have a quest than it is when you don't have the quest.
Oh, 100%. That one, I always try to unlock that one early, and I say always. This is my second. I played last wipe and then this one, but
Okay.
I knew I wanted that one open
Mhm.
because you just want those random grenade kills that you get to count towards it.
Yep.
Because until you have it, it's like, oh, that was a sweet triple kill. Oh, I didn't
Seriously. Seriously. Oh.
But setup is one of those ones that, especially for like newer players and for people that haven't got deep into the task lines. So like, I mean, you explained it. It's the shotgun task on customs with the Ushanka and the scav vest, and it's like it doesn't sound that bad until you think about like you have to get close quarters.
Yep.
And it's later in the task line, right? So you're just getting to it now. I don't think I haven't unlocked it. I'm level 43, and I've sort of taken a little break from tasks, but like it's a rough one. So like, how many kills into that are you?
I just finished it last night.
Oh,
you're lucky, man. Finished it last night. And what was crazy, so it's one of the most restrictive quests. You can't bring whatever gun you want. You can't go to whatever map you want. You can't wear contacts or headphones. You can't wear a helmet, which to me, it makes me not want to bring in really high tier armor because I'm using a weapon I'm not proficient with, and I can't wear a helmet. So I can get one tapped by a scav with a shotgun. So I don't want to bring, a Gen 4 or a slick in and then risk losing that. So I end up running low tier armor. And so you're just so restricted everywhere. And it's so many things to manage so you need 15 kills on 2 separate raids. I had brought everything and I forgot the scav vest. And both of those raids, I got 3 kills. So I ended up getting 21 kills during the quest because you just forget and you're like, you check the quest and you're just like, no, it's just so many. I mean, it's not that many things like I just forgot, but it's just like the most disheartening thing to just like run around with a shotgun. And then it's like, oh, none of those counted. But we just finished it last night and I feel so good about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I was just having a conversation with J-Mac, who's a friend of the show, and he forgot to activate. Is it Psycho Sniper? Or it's one of the ones where you have to get the sniper kills, and he started doing it because he knew it was his last task.
Yeah.
And then he went after 2 raids and realized he hadn't accepted it.
Dude, yeah, you haven't accepted it. Or like I did a shoreline quest where it's just like survive and leave the area. And then I survived and then I was playing with a buddy. So we just went into the next raid and I didn't turn the quest in. And then I died in that raid. So it like, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's a lot to manage. It's a lot to manage. But
That's
I mean,
crazy.
it's fun. It's as frustrating as like quests like setup are. So what I was trying to talk to my chat about was that like, what's frustrating about this quest is 50% of how just restrictive it is. The other 50% of what frustrates me is it just reveals to me a play style in the game that I'm bad at, which is like accuracy. Like, you know what I mean? Not being able to rely on like a mag dump and then just kind of like, follow somebody, but needing to like pinpoint your shots, especially with shotgun. I'm using AP-20, so slugs. Like, so it's like the other 50% isn't that the quest sucks, even though I think it does, but it's just like you just get more and more frustrated yourself because you're like, why am I missing? Like, it's just, oh. Yeah.
I hate shotguns. Like, I hated them
much.
in PUBG. I hate them in Tarkov. I just want them gone. And I know, I mean, Eric, we've had lengthy conversations about shotguns in multiple games, but like, what have you been working on this week, Eric? What have you been up to?
Well, I mean, the only useful shotgun is maybe like an 870 with a red dot on it or something. But I mean, I definitely have had a scav with a Taz and then died because that's terrible. No, this week I've been doing a lot of factory, just XP farming. Kind of taking a little bit of a break from tasks. I'm in the mid 20s as far as level goes, and I'm just pushing to 30 so that I can get the rest of the hideout kind of push to that next level 3 for everything. Get the Bitcoin farm kind of upgraded and kind of go from there. So a lot of factory. I took a good chunk of the week also to learn the new reserve map. Last week's episode, as everyone kind of knows, we did a side-by-side play where Mike and I played it for the first time cold, not knowing anything about it, and stumbled our way through, which was kind of interesting and fun. But since then, I've put a bunch of time into learning it and making a couple guides, and I actually really like the new bunker system. I think it's kind of interesting. I like the layout of it. I think what they did with the D2 extract is really kind of cool. So, kind of using that and learning a little bit more how to take full advantage of that and get into some PvP down there. That's kind of been what my week's been up to.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Well, you said my favorite word. It's factory. I am a factory junkie. Jesse, you now know it.
Really?
Everybody around the Exfil parts knows it, but I last week I was grinding tasks and I kind of I call them the cosplay tasks, right? Where it's like you're using the blueberry set, you're using the what's the other one? The balaclava and the scav vest and all those, right? And restrictive, right? You brought up a good point there. They restrict you in some way. And so this week I said I'm not going to be restricted and I'm going to play my favorite map, which is factory. So I didn't play much over the weekend, but today on stream I played 4 hours of back to back
Wow.
factory, just wrecking folks and then having the most heartbreaking death I've ever experienced in the office. And whether it was, an invisible little speedy boy or it was an audio bug, we'll never know. But it was a great day on factory. I had a lot of fun. So that's actually been most of my week, as I was playing a lot of factory, and then we did some reserve learning that, which was a blast. And I look forward to the future of the split screen, potentially streaming the split screen. So that'll be really fun. So we had a lot of fun learning that bunker system and the new reserve. So have you jumped in the new reserve map with the new bunker system, Jesse?
Yeah, a few times, not a whole lot. I love it. Like, I think it's so funny because they did that. It was like 2 days after we had recorded it on the podcast and we were talking about reserve and we were just talking about how, like, I felt like it just needed some love. Like, on paper, reserve is such a great map, but I just never want to go reserve. And I was trying to, like, explore that, and, like, the extracts has a lot to do with that. You know what I mean? Because it's like either spend $6 million on a red rebel rubles or find it if you're lucky and just run there every time and do nothing, or just like run to one side of the map, click a button, run to the other side of the map, like hope a million things go right on your way back. So, like, how polarizing the amount of effort is for this extract for that just, like, made me not really want to play it until I had a red rebel. But this, I love what they did with it. I love that it's like the power system without an alarm. There's potential for raiders. If somebody else pulls the power, you can use the extract. The extract itself is relatively safe to get to, even if you don't want to go to the underground stuff. So I really liked how they did it. I loved the feel of the underground thing. It's scary, especially when there's raiders and all sorts of stuff. So I haven't played it a whole lot, but, like, every time I'm down there, I've been loving it.
How do you think that it has changed the whole run reserve for loot, the pistol running kind of concepts?
I don't really know, like, because I don't play the map a whole lot, especially at the beginning of the wipe. The other thing that I, like, want for reserve is, like, 10 more quests there. You know what I mean? You only have to go there, like, once, or I think only 2 times. There's a Jaeger quest where you have to find the food storage underneath and then kill Gluhar. And I think those are the only quests that require you to run reserve. And so for me, I'm somebody that, like, I'm uncomfortable if I'm not questing, because I don't want to be questing. It's just the fact that I'm very progress driven. If I set a goal, if I'm not making progress towards that goal, I'm frustrated. So I can do basically any map and be doing a quest a lot of the times except reserve, unless I'm trying to level a soft skill or something like that. So, like, at the end of last wipe, I played reserve a ton, but in the beginning when you're questing, because you don't have to go there. So I'm not super familiar with how that's played out this wipe or how it's shifted that. Like, I think my cursory kind of opinion is that if somebody just pistol runs reserve, the manhole extract is so easy anyway that if I were to do that, I probably wouldn't run downstairs. You know what I mean? Like, I would just hit, whatever the loot ones are and then just hit the manhole. But But there are a lot of people that like to farm raiders, so that might push more people down there. Some of the people that would normally just run for loot, the fact that there's more opportunity for raiders is nice.
Yeah, I really don't know exactly what the differences are, but I can tell you one thing I've noticed is that there seem to be a lot more scavs in the buildings. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I played it quite a bit at the end of the wipe, just just
Yeah.
when it was kind of in, just that time where whatever
Yeah.
goes, for a couple of days, and then didn't touch it at all until last week. And it felt like there was a lot more scavs, and there's tons of raiders in the bunkers. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. You go down there, and I tried doing a couple of night raids down there. It's just,
Oh my gosh.
dude, it's crazy.
That's terrifying.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet night raids down there would be crazy because it's already
Yeah.
kind of dark and ominous. How did you use night vision when you did it?
The first time I tried, no, I just took a pistol with a flashlight, and I just wanted to
That's
see what
terrifying.
happened.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yep. So, sneak around, and but you come around a corner, and one of the things that you and Veritas talked about on your show was how the scavs see people.
Yeah.
And I kind of ran into a scenario where I think it was you who were talking about how they see like just a pixel change or something like that, and then
Yeah.
they shoot you.
Yeah.
And I definitely ran into that, and I thought that was just an interesting like correlation, because it seemed to me like they can see you in the dark and they don't have MVG at all. So it is,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird.
It is weird. And from a game design perspective, I have no idea how to code games, so I'm sure that like the way we would all want it is really hard to do. So I don't, but it does feel that way, right? It's just like it's almost like a CAPTCHA where they're just looking and they're like, where's the fire hydrant? Oh, it's just that one. There's like, oh, there's the pixel, just shoot it. You know what I mean? Whereas a PMC, I think the analogy Veritas uses, if you're on labs on the other side behind some plants and it's foggy, like yeah, you could see somebody there, but chances are, you know what I mean? But if you're round that corner and there's a raider there, he's just like, poof. You're like, oh, I'm dead.
Right. I just find it crazy that the concept of like fog of war has been around since like early RTS, right? It's like
Yeah.
original Warcrafts where they're like you're walking around and the AI doesn't trigger unless you like wander and explore
Yeah.
that fog of war. So it seems like there's some of that because like nighttime factory versus daytime factory. Again, we're talking about
Mhm.
factory. um, you get that sort of difference in how they act, but you're right. Like at some point, there's probably an aggro range difference, and it's probably
Yeah.
comes down to that just pixel change. But it's interesting how that simple concept of what, at least when
It
I
is.
remembered, it was RTS, right? It was the fog of war,
Yep.
and now it's very present again. And it's even funnier because like the new scav update's crazy. One of the last raids I had today, which was the Heartbreak, was I was sprinting from gate 0 across to the little hut, and this scab just like one taps me, and he
Oh my
yells
gosh.
and one taps me from the ramp, and I was
Yep.
just like, "What? How does this happen?" And
See,
it doesn't happen
yeah.
very often, but they can do it.
I feel like I've been one tapped by scavs way more this wipe. Like I was really one of those guys that was on the fence about face shields. Where like 1 week I'll run one every raid, and 1 week I won't even run one. Like it's just like I didn't really matter. But this wipe, it just feels like I get tapped in the face. Class 4 helmet, nice armor, and I just get right like head eyes so often by scavs that I find myself not being super comfortable bringing out a good kit unless you have that face shield. More for scav protection than PMC protection. Most PMCs are running bullets that are going to pen a class 3 face shield, but just for that random buckshot spray that's going to kill me if I don't have it. You know what I mean?
Dude, I had the Exfil and the face shield on, and this dude just one taps me. I don't even know where he hit me.
Yep.
It was crazy. So,
Yeah.
well, we tend to do things backwards, and I'm cutting it off here because we're already 20 minutes in, and I do want to give people an idea of some of your background, and then we're gonna jump back into Tarkov. But I wanted to go through what we've been up to this week because I don't know. It sounds like we've all had some pretty cool scenarios this week, and we'll jump back into Tarkov. But really, I want to give people a chance to know a little bit about you. So, first of all, like props to you. Like you're like going on your Twitch and your about section. Like it's really fleshed out. So I don't want to make you go over all of these things that you've already you put your family and all that kind of stuff and what you do and kind of where you've been. So go check out Jesse. We're going to have all of his like links in the show notes and stuff. And there's a lot of info there, but like, how long have you been playing Tarkov, man? Like, when did you get involved in this game?
Yeah, so I bought Tarkov in the summer of 2018. So right about 2 years ago. It was like a connection from like I was watching a streamer play some other games, and then he would duo with this person pretty often enough that I followed that person. And then one day that person I saw was playing Tarkov, and it's funny because I had actually seen Tarkov previously, probably like 2017, which is, it was a rough state from like somebody that came from, console gaming and a lot of AAA games. 2017 Tarkov was very, very work in progress. So I'd seen it and thought it was cool, but I just kind of fell off the radar. And then in summer 2018, I saw it again. I had just built my first PC ever, because I was a console gamer my whole life. So I had a PC now that I built for video editing, but I had a PC. So I saw it and I was like, hey, so I ended up buying it, and I just getting absolutely destroyed, like basically hating the game. I just remember basically the advice that was given to me when I first started Tarkov was just hatchet run factory. And as somebody who doesn't know, I was like, it was hatchet run factory or Taz run factory, because that's going to be your best like potential profit for. And I was like, okay, especially because if you're brand new to Tarkov, you know what I mean? In 5, 6, 7 raids, you can have almost all of your starting equipment gone, very little money. And then they're like, just hatchet run factory. So I remember it was just not the experience. It wasn't Tarkov, right? I'm just running around naked, getting one tapped out of nowhere most of the time. Every once in a while, you get a cool click on somebody's head and you drop a gear dude, but then his buddy kills you. So it's like, so I put the game down for a few months because I was like, what is this? But then I continued to watch. And I think that has been the, for myself, and I bet probably you guys as well, and a lot of people that are new to Tarkov, like Tarkov is such a hardcore game that the ability to watch other people who are at a high level play it is like the best marketing for the game. Because if I had no ability to do that, and that was my experience, hatchet run factory, Taz run factory, I would have never invested the time that I have now. But the ability to see these guys, like Warren, just like stomping factory, you're just like, I want to do that. And then, so, you know what I mean? So I ended up getting back into it and kind of taking it more seriously and falling in love with it from there.
Well, but it's interesting too, though, right? And this is the enigma that is Tarkov, right? It's like you said, watching someone play it. And I remember when I first saw Tarkov, I was watching Shroud, right? And I'm big into PUBG, still am.
Yeah.
And he went and played Tarkov, and he's sitting on customs, like on the bridge, just waiting for someone to cross customs. And I'm like, this is Shroud. Like, you're supposed to be running around shooting everyone in the head. Like, what are you doing playing this game? And so, like, I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this game. It's too slow, blah, blah, blah. So that's what kept me away from it for so long. But then it's also, once you have an understanding of the game, it's really fun watching other people.
Yes.
But there's this like weird middle ground where it's like it's almost a hindrance, but then it can be really cool.
That is so interesting and very true. Like, if you haven't played the game and you're used to what's popular on Twitch or streaming sites, exactly, it's like 900 miles an hour, just clicking heads, just left and right, 36 kill games, 40 kill games. So if you're not, that's what's normal. But if you buy the game and play 10 raids, then you can watch basically anybody and go, oh, how'd they do that? Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Like, you know what I mean? So that's an interesting point, how different it is. All you have to do is get into a few raids and feel the intensity and watch your ruble count go down and watch your gear start to disappear. That all of a sudden things that would appear mundane before you play Tarkov, now you're like, wait a minute. But before you play it, that's very true. It's a very different experience.
Right. It's like, it's Tetris.
Yeah.
and it's like slow, kind of methodical play to start, right? So it's super interesting. So
yeah,
I guess what captured you though? So right, that's a crazy transition to go from being told to hatch it, run factory,
Yeah.
to now you create content. You have a podcast about the game. You got partnered on Twitch in May, which congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
But like, how do you go from hatchet running factory as like
Yeah.
maybe the worst advice ever
Yeah.
given to a new player on Tarkov to where you're at now? Like, how does that happen? What hooked you?
Yeah, so being able to watch some people and realize by watching that like the way I was playing it was the wrong way. You know, it's like don't hatch and run factory. You know what I mean? So that was one thing. And really just like it's really interesting. It's almost hard to quantify what captured me about the game. Well, I guess here's how you would quantify. I am a sucker for vision. Like I'll just when I hear the vision for Tarkov, I'm just like, that sounds like the best video game ever. So like a lot of people are experiencing like, you know, like burnout or whatever. Like if this game, like, you know what I mean? If they're like, oh, delay again. If this game doesn't come out till 2039, I'm going to be there. Because every time Nikita opens his mouth and starts talking about the game, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But it's so interesting because I was never into hardcore games. I was never into games that like really rewarded you by forcing you to go through punishment first and then it feels better after. Like, you know, the low-hanging fruit everybody compares, it's like the Dark Souls, the FPS. That's what Tarkov, you know what I mean? It's just like it's really brutal, it's really punishing, but it's rewarding when you get there. I never played Dark Souls. I was not into those games. I didn't like games that were hard. I played every game I ever got on normal mode. I never turned it up to hard mode. So it was weird. It was weird that a game so brutal and punishing captured me so much. I think I was like, as a guy who just like, I'm definitely not like a gun nut, but just as a guy who enjoys like firearms and weapons, the realism aspect of just like having to check the chamber and like the fact that if I have a 30 round mag and I shoot 13 rounds and I reload, that mag carries those 17 rounds left. And if I reload back to it, it's a half, like all that kind of stuff. That's like, that got me in. And then the vision for what the game could be once you start playing it really like hooked me. And then for sure, I tell chat this all the time, streaming, like there's not a question in my mind that I would not be playing this game right now if I wasn't streaming. Like people ask me all the time how much I play offline and it's like 0. Like every time I try to play offline, I die, I get super frustrated and I close the game and like 2 raids, like, and people are so weird because they're like, you're so chill. It's like, and I guess that ties into my backstory too, is just video games has always been a very communal thing to me. Like I don't like 60% of the video games I've purchased myself, I never completed. If it's a single player game and I buy it and I'm like so excited about it and I'll play it and I'll put 40, 60 hours into it, I won't complete it. Like there's this video games for me, there has always been a social component to it. And so even just having 2 or 3 viewers that I can like talk to and that maybe knew the game better than me and said the extract's over there, that for sure is what kept me playing. It was a really long-winded answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, that was awesome, man. Like I think the longest single player game I've finished in the last 10 years is Portal. I'm the same way on that. So
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually have not really played single player games in a long time just because they're just not, I don't know, it just seems after you play a couple of really big multiplayer games,
yeah,
you go back to single player and it seems just kind of empty. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's fun if it's a puzzle like Portal or something like that, or like a challenge or something like that, but it doesn't hold my interest either. I enjoy the social aspect of it. I like being able to, you know, bring your friends along too. So
for sure.
So there's an interesting sort of dynamic there, right? And I want to dig into this a little bit. So
yeah,
you're talking about the social aspect and how that kind of kept you there, but then there's a really big offline aspect to your content as well, and that's making videos and doing the YouTube content.
Yeah.
So do you find that challenging? Do you find it challenging to be like offline and editing and doing content when there's sort of that like push-pull, like I could be online like gaming with people versus editing content offline?
I mean, that's a really great question. No, I haven't really experienced that. Most of my videos are like, once I kind of sank into a rhythm of doing YouTube videos, a lot of them are almost like rant based, where I just like, I'm just talking, and then afterwards I'll go pull gameplay and put it over it. You know what I mean? Like if, unless I'm actually like, you know, like looking at the stats of a gun or something like that. But if I'm talking strategy or something like that, then it's really just, or a series that I do, the Lessons from Beyond the Grave series, where I just pull a clip from my stream, we just watch it, and then we just talk about it, because there's so much knowledge to Tarkov. There's so much stuff to know and learn. So I don't, a lot of people that I respect, and I'm watching their videos, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like my videos could be so much better if I did this. There's always that when you're making content, but a lot of guys I really respect will spend a lot of time like playing the game and either testing something or getting the right shot or something. And I haven't really done a whole lot of that personally. And then there was my background of being a videographer. I kind of like the editing portion, like as somebody who like did that for and does that for a job. Like I am a huge nerd, so I love to geek out over like cameras and camera settings and all sorts of stuff like that. But I find myself like, you know, my favorite part of it isn't at the shooting the footage. It's like, I like the editing process. So that kind of makes that, it's just like a different hobby. So it makes it less like, oh, I could be online doing the thing. I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. I enjoy the editing process too, and the creation, like the creative part of when you're doing the editing. You're usually start off with something. I mean, people who are good start off with a plan. I usually start off with an idea. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And along the way, you know, it develops into what the end product is.
Exactly.
You know, and I totally relate to that feeling of you watch your creation, right? You put it up there and everything's good, and you're like, wow, look at Veritas's video.
I did it every time. You just watch somebody else and you're like, oh, that was cool. Why don't I do that? And then, yeah.
No, but it's good, man. I enjoy the content creation stuff too. I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
When you guys are talking about this, like I love this because I am not, how do I say this? Like I am not I'm like a weird hybrid in there, right? Like I just want everything set up so that I can go do it. But I also love like the creativity and then the like getting it out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is a different side of it. So I mean this can kind of go to both of you actually, but like when you guys are talking about this, like what are your favorite like videos to make? Right? I'm going a little off script here because I just want to I'm super curious. So like and you could even say content as well, but like I'm super curious, like what are your favorite videos to make when you're producing something for your YouTube channel?
I think for me, it's just that kind of like, I don't know. I really like the almost like talking head, just like strategy. Like I think that's kind of where my channel is going. I started off with just like very knowledge, like, you know what I mean? Like this is the health system in Tarkov. This is that in Tarkov. But like, there's only so much content there, right? That at some point you explain all the things in Tarkov and it's like, well, I want to keep my channel going. And then for me, like I am not very good at Tarkov for the amount of time I've put into it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I understand that a lot of people with, 12% survival rates are like, you have a 40% survival rate, don't complain. And I'm not complaining, but like I've also put 2,000 hours into the game and I died the most ridiculous ways all the time. And that's because, right, like I didn't know life CS since I was 11 and I can't.
Hey, don't you attack me.
I can't. No, I wish I did. And I can't, flick shot, you know what I mean? Like Shroud, or like I can't think that fast yet. But I fell in love with this game. And so me like getting good at it is slower, not than most people, but than most PC gamers, because I started PC gaming with Tarkov, which is a terrible decision. And I started, you know what I mean, at, 28 as opposed to, 16 or whatever. So right at that time where I like all that stuff that I wanted to make content for, explain this, explain that. And when I was done with that, I was at a place in Tarkov where my progression was slowing down a lot because they had these really bad habits that I needed to get over. Like, you know what I mean? Like playing like a console player or playing like a COD player or whatever, just like mashing W. Like that was like, I used to just die so often because like I'd see an enemy and I would just never let go of W. And I would just like, all the decisions I made, like, okay, shoot this and switch to this weapon, I would just constantly be like running at them because that's just how you play COD. You just never stop moving. You know what I mean? And so like that kind of stuff just led me to like the greater strategy. Like, you know what I mean? When you watch Shroud or Deadly Slob is one of my favorite people to watch because he can think so many things in an instant. And I just basically started making content about like, I'll watch him and I'll be like, what were the 9 things he had to think of in that 1 millisecond to complete that fight? And why don't I think of those things? And then I'll make a video about, suppressing your enemy or, hiding in plain sight or cover or all that kind of stuff. So I've really kind of fallen in love with that kind of content. We're talking like strategy in Tarkov because it's really easy to see like examples of it working well and not well. So I've really kind of fallen in love with making that kind of stuff.
Well, that's awesome. You said something there that I want to backtrack a little bit on though, because Tarkov has this amazing ability to attract people from console and get them to buy an expensive PC. And you got to get all the peripherals for the PC just so that you can get wiped all
oh my gosh,
over the
dude,
map.
yeah.
So you talked about some habits and you talked about W key, which, console FPS is like, it's not a W key, but it's the stick, like sticks forward all the time, right?
All the time.
I am 20 years removed from playing console, right? I switched over. It's funny, you said Counter-Strike, but I literally was probably 12 years old and I started playing Team Fortress Classic. And then shortly after, when I was 13 or 14, I played Counter-Strike. And I've been on FPS ever since. I had my World of Warcraft, side job.
Yeah.
And then it was that. So like, the idea of breaking those bad habits is something that we have. I'm telling you, like 2-3 times a week, we have somebody say like, "Hey, just found the podcast, just bought a new PC, or I'm buying a new PC. I want to play this game." We hear it all the time. So when you're talking about bad habits, like obviously W key, the stuck joystick. How did you go about breaking those? Because it sounds like you may be in process on some of those, but what are you doing to get past that?
Man, so there's well, first of all, chat will just tell me exactly the reason why I die as soon as I die. You know what I mean? So it's like you die, and in Tarkov it's so brutal because you lose everything and you look over and someone's like, you shouldn't have done that. And it's like, yeah, I know. You know what I mean? And so like I've put a lot of energy into like accepting that feedback, even though it's frustrating because you're just like, you just want everybody to be on your side. You know what I mean? You want to like, yeah, dude, like that's dumb. But then like, I found that most of the time the troll that's in there is like, you shouldn't have, like, why were you strafing there? It's like, I don't have an answer for that because you're right. And I don't want you to be right, but you're right. So it's accepting the feedback of like why I died. But it's just like every time I die, it compulsively, and there are probably people who like get annoyed by it and have been driven away by my content, but like I have to explain it to myself and then often out loud. So I'm talking to chat too. And so for people who are trying to get better, it's part of why they like being in there, because like I don't know, like it's funny, there's things you don't about yourself that you don't know until you start like talking about it and answering questions. So it's weird now that I'm like talking about it, but it is.
Don't
like
go changing your content because I asked you a question.
No, not at all. But I'm like having this like epiphany. But like seriously, it's like compulsively. When I die, I have to explain it, and it could be as simple as like, "Oh, I didn't know there was 2." Like I go, you know what I mean? Like okay, like that's it. But sometimes it's like okay. I mean, it's crazy. Every time I'm like, okay, well, I made that decision because I thought I heard him running this way, and it turns out he was running that way. And if he was running this way, that would have been the good play because I would have caught him this way, but he wasn't. He was running this way. The audio is weird in Tarkov. It's hard to understand. And that's why I just went out right into his line of fire and I died. Like, so there's that. And then you start to see those habits, right? It's like, how many times in a day can I say I died there because I was just running at him and that was a bad thing to do? And it's weird. It's like habits, it's crazy. Like habits really run deep. Like you just don't think about it. So there have been quite a few that I have been like that were like very active. Like I have to put a lot of brain space into breaking that habit, and still have, like, still to this day, like shooting center of mass is it's my default. That's just how I played, you know what I mean? Single player games. It's how I played Call of Duty. It's how just like aiming for the head is like one of the most important and fundamental like Tarkov things. Like you're going to be so much more successful. You know what I mean? If you aim for the head. And it's there's still a lot of times where it's like I had the opportunity to line up a headshot and I didn't. So it's just a lot of practice and a lot of death. A lot of death.
We were just talking about that was that today, Eric? We were talking about that on Factory where, like 20, like, hindsight's 2020 where
Yeah.
you were on Factory, right? And I don't even remember which one of us it was, but we're sitting there and one of us was dead and the other one was like trying to find the guy roaming around, and I think it was Eric, right? And he finds him, right? Ronald
Mhm.
finds this guy who had killed me because I was being dumb and running around like an idiot. But this guy kills me from above, and then Ronald has great position and then spots the guy as he's getting up from looting. So he had like this great positional advantage, and he shoots and hits the guy 4 times. Right? And he's like, I missed. And he's like, sorry, I missed him. And I was like, dude, you hit him 4 times. He's like, but I could have lined up a headshot. And it's like that split second of like,
Yeah.
Could you have taken the extra split second to aim and hit
Mhm.
him in the head? Yeah, maybe. Right. But it's super challenging because
Yeah.
in the moment, like I saw him hit 4 clean shots as
Yeah.
this guy's running, but he had my slick armor on. That's why he got
Oh,
away. Right.
yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
it's just crazy. It's a really good point though, is that, training to aim for the head, it's the simplest thing we could possibly say,
Yep.
but putting it into practice, my
Yeah.
goodness.
Tarkov is just one of those games where it's just so important. You know what I mean? Because like there's so many rounds that like, you know what I mean? Because like most of the time, like when you think about the Chad, it's slick and probably like, the Wendy Exfil helmet with the face shield. And like the chaddest of chads are still only wearing class 3 armor on their face. Like, you can get armor that pens class 3 day 1 of the wipe. 762 PS is going to pretty reliably pen class 3 in 1 to 2 hits. And so like the amount of like viability of weapon and ammo choices when you're aiming for the head, it's just unreal. But that same ammo against the slick, it can tank 10, 11, 12 rounds sometimes. So it really is one of those things that I'm still struggling to like aim for the head.
Yeah, I found myself obviously, struggling to aim for the head as well. It's interesting because it feels like, having played so many other games, you're programmed to aim for the body.
Yeah.
And Tarkov, it's just, you have to aim for the head.
Yep.
And in this particular case, the headshot, I had the headshot there, and I missed low. And so then he got up, and then it was just, firing to make some hits. And
Yeah.
but I do think that Tarkov is one of those games that you do have to have some ability of introspection. Otherwise, you're going to quit.
100%.
You just can't play this game and, get better without that.
I think this topic of introspection is just a really key critical thing. And what I wanted to talk about was a few of the tips that I do. And almost every game nowadays has the ability to look at like your network statistics and all the usage and your choke and all that kind of stuff. And I always tell people, turn it off. Like you don't have a choice over the ping in Tarkov. If you get a high ping, it flashes up in the top right. But you can look at the debug statistics, and when you're looking at your gameplay and getting better, if you're looking at like, oh man, I was lagging, or oh man, I had some choke and there was some stutter, and oh man, I didn't hear that grenade, and blah, blah, blah. You can do that all day long, in my opinion. And there's times where those real things do happen and they cause deaths.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a step back like 3 seconds from that moment and you start looking at what you were doing even before that like game stutter or whatever it was happened, could you have been in better position? Could I have, thrown a grenade before they did? Could I have picked a better route? Could I have made less noise? Could I have, reloaded more ammo so that my 60 rounder was topped off instead of only had 45? There's all these things that, if you use those split seconds throughout the entire raid better, maybe I could have been on top of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that concept of introspection. And I guess I'm just curious, like both of you guys, like what do you guys do to go back and like think about how do you picture, how do you go through that and walk through it? What's your method for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Like, that's such a huge thing. Like, back before, I think it was before point 12, and even in the point 12 wipe, all the like cheaters, they were apparently everyone was a cheater, and it was just like it was rampant through the community. And I used to say the same thing, and it's like, well, maybe not. And even if it was, like, could there have been something you could have done anyway? Like, is there still a nugget that you could have pulled? It's like, yeah, he was cheating, or yeah, that was a big stutter. But if I'm looking at this objectively, I was probably out of position here. Like, I was a little overexposed or whatever. And so there's always something for me. Like, the biggest thing that I've done is like, and I tell people this a lot when they ask like how to get better. I believe that whole introspection piece is like the most important thing. It's like, give yourself a way to watch your own gameplay back. So in OBS, which is what I used to stream, there's like a replay buffer function where it's basically recording all the time. And after 90 seconds, it just deletes. And then every time I hit a hotkey, it just saves what happened in the last 90 seconds, just as a file, boom. And I can change that to 10 seconds all the way to, I think 120 seconds is the maximum. And you don't have to be a streamer. You don't have to have 3 monitor setup or 2 PC setup or whatever. Like, you can use NVIDIA Shadowplay if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. I've been told if you have an AMD graphics card, they have a similar software. It's free. You can download OBS, which is a very small program and is also free. And you can just set up the replay buffer and not the stream, and give yourself the ability to watch an encounter back. That has been like the number one thing. It was the inspiration for an entire series on my channel, The Lessons from Beyond the Grave. It's just countless times I've been like, that guy was cheating. That was lag. I hit those shots, and then I watch it and I'm immediately humbled. And then I have to personally, I have to turn that energy into like, okay, well then what could I have done better? You know what I mean? Because like, I want to focus that rage that Tarkov brings in everybody. I want to like give it a place to go that's not just like toxicity. So I give it that place where it's like, well, what could I have done better? And there's just so often, countless times, I'm like, dude, I hit that shot. And then it's just like so clear when you watch it back that you didn't hit the shot. Or like the whole cheater or lag, like even a lot of times there, when you're watching it back and you can like open the clip up in VLC and slow it down, you're like, there's 2 more dudes over there. You know what I mean? It's like, because Tarkov is really one of those games, well, for me at least, Tarkov is one of those games where like, once the game gives you a place for your eyes to go, it's really hard for me to pull my eyes away from that. You know what I mean? Like, when you're running around, you're always checking the scene. But when you see a guy or something, like we were playing reserve, I was playing with a buddy duoing, and he just got Mosin one tapped. Just like we were doing our thing, and it was just like boom, dead. And you're just like, oh no, like he's dead. What's going on? And right after he died, we were up on like the bunkers near the train station and like the K buildings, and you can get up on top of those like metal roof K bunkers. And right up there, I saw a player scav, like back himself up. So he like, so he couldn't see me anymore. And I was like, oh, he's got that Mosin. So I'm holding that, and he repeaks it a few times as I'm trying to get an angle through the bushes. And I was like so ready for this headshot. We like, I never end up finding the guy. I play out the rest of the raid, and then chat's like, oh, OMG, he still doesn't know. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And they posted a clip, and I thought that player scav killed my friend, but it wasn't. The guy that killed him was seriously like 15 feet to my direct left, but looking the same direction I was. So he never saw me, and I never saw him. And we never ended up running into each other. I think he thought it was too hot to go for the loot, so he ended up looping. Maybe a player scav killed him. But the guy, I just like, so Tarkov is a game where like, when it gives you a place for your eyes to go, it's really hard for me to pull my eyes away from that. So many of those times where I'm like, that was desync, that was BS, that was the net code, the server tick, the cheater. So many times when you're watching it back, when you're not in the moment, when you're not risking your own gear and you're watching that clip back, a lot of times you're just like, oh, there was 3 more guys. I didn't see those guys. They probably killed me. You know what I mean? So having that ability to watch that small encounter back, you can delete the video. It doesn't have to take up hard drive space. It doesn't trash your FPS. Like, people have asked me all the things. Like, it's just a free way to get better at the game. You know what I mean? So that's always been my thing too, is just like, give yourself the ability to learn from your own mistakes, because Tarkov doesn't. There's no kill cam. There's no ability to go watch a raid back. Sometimes you die and you never saw the guy and you never got to fire your own weapon, and you're like, what do I do with this? I'm just back at the main menu. But a lot of times there's a nugget in there, maybe a bush you didn't hear or a person you didn't see. Yeah, so that's been a huge help for me in trying to get better at the game.
That's awesome. I just call it like coaching time, and I do the same thing, and I've actually put up a few videos now, like on Factory, of breaking down all of my thought processes, things I did well, the things I didn't do well. And it's like, there was a time that just recently where, I'm just like, I'm fragging out, man, on the main floor of Factory, and there's a point where a scav with a hunter was up in the rafters, just like waiting to line up a shot. And fortunately for me, he missed his first 2 shots somehow, but he was up there for like 2 minutes, just like waiting for the perfect moment. Yeah. And so it's, like I was seriously dead, like for 2 minutes, could have died at any moment. So I think that's just really good. And I do want to talk about really quick though, when you're watching it back and you see something like, I guess for someone who's never recorded their own gameplay before, how often do you change your gameplay based on a video you watched?
I mean, a lot of times it's like iterative. I watch myself die the same way 100 times before, because it's all like, what fascinates me about PC gaming is just the speed at which a human can process so many different decisions in an instant and then make a decision that nets them a victory. And so that's fascinating. And I'm trying to figure out right now how to squeeze more information in that millisecond. You know what I mean? Because I find myself dying a lot that way. Last night, with our very last raid, we were on Shoreline. We were pushing up to the resort. People were already in there, and they were taking shots at us from the resort. And so we were able to put together, there's at least 2. They're on multiple levels. They're making a lot of noise. We're making a lot of noise. And I'm so focused on gathering information about the enemy. Okay, I hear him on wood. He's got to be right here. This other guy's upstairs. It was like I didn't have enough room to think about where my teammate was going to be. But when we watched it back, it was like he ran up the metal stairs on the external side of Shoreline to go right up to the roof and was going to then come down on him. So those stairs were in my vision, and they're loud, and nothing else makes that sound. So I had plenty of cues to tell me that my teammate was going upstairs outside, plenty of cues, but all my brain space was spent on, where are these guys? I threw a VOG inside and I whipped around inside, and I catch this guy reloading his HK, and I just think it's my teammate, and I'm just looking at him, and he reloads it and then just shoots me. And I die. And I was like, what? Like, and it was so frustrating because I immediately knew that was my fault. You know what I mean? That like, and I was telling him, I was like, hey, no, your call outs were good. Like, that wasn't, he was like, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you. I was like, no, like, that's just one of those things where like my brain wasn't processing enough of the information, or I was focusing too much on that. So there's that. And then watching your own videos back, it's exactly that. It's like, okay, now on the hindsight 2020, I have the information on what I should have done there. It's figuring out how to squeeze that into that millisecond. Like, how do I then start checking? How do I then start considering those things? Where's my teammate? You know what I mean? And it takes a lot. And like, because of that, a lot of times what I do when I spawn in with somebody now, I'll look at them and I'll just be like, okay, 8R 6B47 Gen 4. And then that just helps me, because then when I walk in on this bear with a flannel and a Wendy helmet, it's like, oh, I just know. Like, even if I don't know where you are, I just know he's not you, so I can shoot him. So like little stuff like that, it's way over time though. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times when people say like, I'm about to buy the game, or I just bought the game, and they're like, you know what I mean? Do you have any advice? A lot of times I'll tell them like, don't take it seriously until your 1000th death. And that's such a dramatic thing to say, but that's almost like a way to break the ice on like, it's going to hurt that bad. And if you take it super seriously, you're going to get frustrated. Like, every death is a lesson, and there's lots of lessons to learn in Tarkov. So die a lot. That's the best thing you can do. Just like die a lot, but give yourself an ability to like think about how you died. You know what I mean? So it always hurts when people, they go in brand new, they play a few games, they die, and then they spend the next 6 months in the game with a pistol, slow creeping along the edges of the map, and then they run in and they just pick the rest of the loot up. And it's like, if you want to play that way, that's awesome, because Tarkov, you can totally be a scavenger and never have to worry about combat. But if you don't want to play that way, you're hurting yourself by playing that way. Like, you're so scared to die. You know what I mean? That's my thing. Like, people are like, why are you so aggressive? Like, you're usually so, it's like, well, because I want to play aggressive. That's what I want to learn how to play. So I'm okay with losing millions and millions and millions of rubles in an attempt to learn that. So like, that's what always, it hurts me when people play the game the way they don't want to play because they're so scared to die. It's like, death is the best teacher in Tarkov. And then there's billions of resources, like your guys' Discord, our Discord, countless Discord streams where you can then link up with people. I've got no money. Let's go run some raids. I'll pull you through some labs or whatever. We'll get you some money. Like, that stuff can come. But like, if you're playing the game the way you don't want to play it, you'll never learn to play the game the way you want to play it. So,
and this is like, everything you just said is fascinating, because one of the coolest things to me, right? And FPS player have been forever, right? And Ronald is like, you know, he played RTS at an extremely high level, like WoW Arena at an extremely high level, PvE WoW, like just kind of a different genre, right? And then he did play some FPS, and now he's come back to playing FPS, kind of, right? Tarkov is FPS, kind of, right?
Yeah.
It's FPS plus, you know, whatever, all the other stuff. And so, like, this is fascinating to me because sort of unintentionally through editing and going back through footage, like, we watch a lot of stuff back over, but also intentionally, we've actually done some, like, split screen analysis of videos. So I'm actually really curious, like, Eric, like, when you listen to this, like, has this, like, added anything to, like, what we've been doing? Or, like, how do you view this whole introception thing, like, especially coming from other genres of games into FPS now?
I think back to some of our early episodes of Exfil where we were talking about how scavving too much really hurts your progression in the game, and how one of the big things that I had to do early on was just force myself to do scavving as a PMC. So I just stopped scavving for like a couple weeks, and I just did all PMC. So I mean, I had to die for a while. It had to be punishing, but I had to, that was like the basic level of early Tarkov, you know, sub 100 hours played. You just have to force yourself to do the thing where you can lose all the things, because it doesn't feel good, right? It really doesn't feel good, and it's frustrating. But once you get over that hump, and that came from, you know, just initially recognizing that I wasn't progressing very fast, and that was my own fault because I was taking the easy way out scavving. But then I got into this kind of rut, right? I was PMCing, but dying a lot because I really didn't know what I was doing. And the thing
Yeah.
that I really didn't understand early on, and my advice to new players is very similar to yours, Jesse, is to find a way to record their gameplay to look at it. And I would just add one more thing to it. It's the biggest hurdle I had in this game was sound. And so
Oh my gosh.
learning how Tarkov does sound, for one thing, and it's a little different than other FPS games, at least that I've played in the past. And so getting over the hurdle of spotting an enemy based upon hearing that enemy in a certain direction doing something, bush, running on a grate, running on wood, and the diversity of environment in Tarkov can lead you down very confusing paths early on in your Tarkov journey. And one of the things that just really, really was frustrating for me early on was I heard an enemy, I was ready to engage in PvP, and I was just looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I would record, the last 30 or 60 seconds, and I would look at it, and I would just be like, yeah, when I look at this back, yeah, he was totally the other way, and I'm dead.
Yeah.
And and there's no death cam, right? So that all comes down to that's extra effort to get to the point where you're able to do that kind of analysis. And so I really think that it's just super important to learn sound. And I'll just one last point on this is where I really had my breakthrough was on Factory. I forced myself to play Factory a lot. And that really honestly wasn't until this wipe where I forced myself to play Factory a lot. And Mike made a video on Factory on his strategies, and my strategy is a little bit different, but it accomplishes the same type of thing. You basically lock down the majority of Factory minus the office, and you're able to understand the sounds that are coming at you from all directions. And it's really interesting. That has helped me. It's helped me get over that hump. So I just sound is such a big deal in this game.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
It is, and it's so funny because Eric, you said something with the no replay that, Jesse, I agreed with you so hard that I forgot my own point that I was trying to make. So when you all listen back and hear me stutter, it's because I was trying to remember this. And this is my dream, okay? And I love replay systems. I love death cam, and I know that Nikita says he's not going to do it. I get that. I hope that somewhere, whether it's the arena that they've teased and talked about or somewhere, that somehow this gets in there, because you were talking about the guy 15 feet from you on the K buildings that you didn't see. And for one, from a content perspective, some of the close proximity stuff, and again, you guys, I know you hate when I talk about PUBG, but some of the funniest things that I've ever seen in gaming were going back through replays in PUBG and realizing that there's a dude prone in a bush 2 feet from me for 5 minutes, or oh, that grenade, the guy that I killed with the grenade was actually 20 feet beyond the guy that I was throwing the grenade at, and I left and the guy just stood there and didn't know where I went. And I can't even imagine in a game like Tarkov, if we had the ability to look in a free cam over a replay of a raid, do you know how many ridiculous things probably happen in every single raid? It's some of the ways I've died and the ridiculous stuff, it would be hilarious. The content would be amazing. Now, it's a hardcore game, and I get that, and there's spots that, there's a lot of people that probably would never stream because they don't want people to know their spots. It's a hardcore game, and that's okay. So, I get it that it's not a reality, and Nikita is, vehemently opposed to it. But that's my dream, is that somewhere I would love the ability to have this, because for one, it's an amazing learning tool to watch the flow of maps and watching where people come from, where they go, how they rotate, how they shoot, how they peek, how they zoom in, when they zoom out, all of these different things that we really don't have access to other than
Yep.
through YouTube or streaming. But the difference is what we've all been talking about is the introspection piece, and there is no replacement for experiencing something that you've watched somebody else do 100 times, and then you mess it up,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, like
Dude.
I can watch Pestily run through reserve on his run 100 times, but then I go run that same run and I make a left instead of a right, and I get
Yep.
lost, but then I have learned how to do it. And that's where the replay system and all those kind of things can really help. So it's a dream of mine because I love those systems, but I also know that it's probably not a reality. So thank you for letting me, leading me into my dream, because I was totally trying to remember it, and I just agreed too hard.
It is rough. I mean, maybe in the arena, because that's such I imagine it'll be a much more fast paced, like, I doubt we're going to have 50-minute arena raids. You know what I mean? It's just like 6v6, everyone's dead in 3 minutes. Like, I'm sure on the back end, it would be easier to watch that. But there is that aspect of like being able to see the flow of the whole thing. But Ronald, when you were talking about the sound, dude, it's such a good point, especially for newer players. It's like, because there's an attempt at so much depth in the sound. The fact that, wood sounds different, grass, concrete, glass, like, you know what I mean? And then there's a lot of intentionality around map design. Where is there wood? There's so much intentionality there, which I love from BSG's end. But then unfortunately, the flip side of that coin is we just like have terrible audio processing. So then it almost makes that like really good intention, and like it makes really good map design sometimes bad map design ultimately, when you're just so confused at the noise. You know what I mean? Like when it sounds like they're right in front of you or behind. Customs dorms, it can be so rough, where like if you're on second floor, all 3 levels sound like they're on the same level as you, and you're just like, there's a dude around this door, and then you make a bunch of noise to make the push, and then he's not there, he's up, and now he knows you're there, and you're like, oh geez. But I think I'm so excited for Steam Audio, like that, for the, like, I think the most recent update we got from Nikita is that it's currently really CPU heavy, which is something that if you've looked into Steam Audio, you know that that's a thing. So I think they're working on optimizing that, and then even potentially moving to new Unity engines. But like, if you do any research into what Steam Audio is, it's almost like it was built for Escape from Tarkov. Like, because it matches the intentionality with which they design maps, which like the whole, I guess like the really short version of what Steam Audio is that it's supposed to simulate the way sound reverberates off different objects. So like if you yell in front of a pane of glass, it'll sound different than if you yell in front of cardboard or in front of concrete. And that's the point. And so I think, Steam Audio is only half implemented right now. And if we can ever get to that next spot, I feel like it'll really unlock Tarkov. But it is a rough spot. Factory is such a great example of that. Like, I'm just confident that like you're both like 9 times better at Factory than I am, because I understand the way the map flows. But like, I was doing Punisher Part 6 3 days ago, and I hear something and I'm like, chat, I don't know where he is. I hear him, I don't know where he is. And then he just runs up behind me. Like, the audio on that map has got me so turned around that I'm like, I'm going to run this way and hope he's this way. And then 50% of the time I'm right, 50% of the time I'm wrong. And so what I always say about Factory is like, the people who are best at Factory mastered a broken system. Like, the audio is so scuffed, you just master it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, they just know that sound is supposed to be here, but it's here, and I heard it, so I'm going to push them. And I just don't get that. So like, that's when you watch Warren or Landmark or these guys just like, oh, I'm going to run Factory for a few hours. You can just see them. They stand still and they just hear the slightest thing and they just drop down. I'm now behind them and I shot you. They just know, and they know where they're going. And I just can't nail that. So the audio, man, I'm so excited for Steam Audio to kind of come through, but it's rough.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for Steam Audio as well. I tried playing with it a little bit, and it's odd at the moment, at least for me. So I
Yeah.
turned it off.
I think I like it. But you can sell me on Vision once again. So the Vision for Steam Audio is so good that I turned it on and I was just like, I've just decided that I was going to learn it. Like it is definitely different. It's weird. And there was a bug with it where grenades, if you guys do you play with it?
Yeah, I
Like,
do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Like for like a week, grenades, there were just no directional audio. They just sounded like they blew up on top of you. And I was just like, oh, okay. But I feel like it helps directional audio a little bit, but it did definitely change the way some things sounded. So I mean, it's when it comes in more, it's definitely going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I would say I'll say this as someone who's put a lot of hours in Factory. Factory is a sound map. That's it. It's a sound map. I think it will always be a sound map. Like
I agree.
they put glass in certain places and wood in certain places, and it's all cues. So like the best thing is to lock down an area and learn where all the sounds are. 100%, no doubt about it. But this with Steam Audio, yeah, it's a it helps the directional sound a bit. For me, it actually is worse in some spots, but it's more for me just a commitment to saying, okay, if they're going to go down this path, I want to at least be used to it by the time it comes in. But I didn't notice a massive difference. And funny enough, Factory, I actually didn't notice any difference at all when using Steam Audio, which is why I left it on, because I could still play how I wanted to play.
That kind of makes sense. Like where I've noticed it the most is big outdoor maps. Like where in the past, like if I'm on customs, like, you know what I mean, near the campfire and I hear something go off, it used to just be like, okay, I know it's that way. But now a lot of times I can like from, you know, the road next to the campfire, I can determine if it's dorms or gas station. Like more specific, like that was an inside sound, but much farther away. Like, you know what I mean? So it's more that. So it kind of makes sense where Factory, where it's all inside sounds, it's all closer. It's not going to be that much of a difference. But there are definitely moments where it feels worse and then moments where it feels better. But it's because like, it's like they just kind of put that on top of the current audio system so that it's interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The thing that I noticed the most about Steam Audio was in the outdoor environments. I play a lot of shoreline, and when I turned Steam Audio on, it was really interesting because I heard things from the resort that I had never heard before. So I'm running around on shoreline, and I stop and hide. I'm like, what is that? And so it took a little bit of getting used to. It was just odd to get used to. I guess my last point about like getting better by reviewing your own strategy is the kind of the one thing I wanted to ask you, because I run into this question a little bit in our Discord, in our community, and I always tell people kind of the same answers. People say like, I watch a guide video and I just can't do that. Like I can't, I'm not successful. And I always tell people that they have to play like they play. You know, you can't emulate someone who has thousands of hours in a game, not just Tarkov, but any game. What you can do is get a general direction from someone who has thousands of hours in a game. But telling people to play like they play. And I remember a point early on in the last wipe when we were getting into this where for myself, I just started playing my own way completely. And and that was very different than at least some of the other people around me. Most of my friends are FPS chads. And so I would play and it would be completely different, right? And I found success doing it the way that I wanted to do it, right? For me.
Yep.
And I think it's interesting because Tarkov allows so many different types of play styles to be equally as successful in the end.
Yep.
And I don't know a lot of games that really can get you there. And I just, what are your thoughts on that kind of concept?
Man, I love that you brought that up because like you're so right. Tarkov is like really, really is unique in that way. Like the community as a whole loves to like talk about what's meta, guns, meta armor, meta this, meta that. But there isn't really like if your goal is like survive raids and make money, there isn't a meta like play style. Because like if I just want to survive raids and make money, you could go Night Factory and farm scavs for years, dude, and like find crazy stuff in their pockets and sell it and sell your scav gear, and you could survive a lot of raids and you could make a lot of money and never touch a slick or never, rush dorms or whatever. So like, I love that you brought that up. Like, one of my favorite content creators to watch is Smoke, because he stands out among the crowd as somebody who like decidedly plays different than like what would be the meta play style of like the streaming world, where, you know what I mean? It's like chat up, how many PMC kills can I get? Which I find that entertaining as well. But you watch him and it's like he's playing a different video game. And but he's so successful at it, man. He'll extract with 30 seconds left and he'll have, 16 scav kills and 3 PMC kills. And it's just, yeah, I completely agree. It's like, play how you want to play. There's a million different ways to enjoy Tarkov, so find the one that you enjoy. And then the other thing is just like, it's, I saw a guide or I saw a Pestily wipe scav boss and I can't do that. And it's like, you don't know how many, well, going back to like death is the best teacher. Like, you don't know how many times Pestily died to scav boss to learn how to make those split second, like, I know I can't repeat this angle because I know he's aggroed me. You know what I mean? And he doesn't say that. He's just fighting and then retreating and then pushing and then retreating and then pushing. And it's like, you don't know how many times he died to learn those things. Just like when you see somebody who's amazing at basketball, it's like they've made more shots than you, but they've also missed way more shots than you. So it's just like, once again, it's like, because there's the rub. It's like, don't play a way you don't want to play. But if there is a way you want to play and you're just not that good at it, like, you kind of have to charge into it and keep dying and keep learning, because then you'll get to, like, Pestyly's died 50,000 times. Who knows? You know what I mean? And it's like, that's why he's so good. So I love that you brought that up, because Escape from Tarkov really does provide you any way you want to play the game. You can be profitable and you can survive raids.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually love this because I love focusing on the individual player, like how I play Tarkov, not how somebody should play Tarkov or what the game does to you. Like, I love that concept. But I do want to transition a little bit, because one of the things that fascinated me, and this is specifically on your last show, and I've listened to, I think, just about the entire podcast catalog, but you and Veritas talked at length about RMT and changes to the game. So, right, we just spent a lot of time talking about ourselves, the individual player, and now I want to talk a little bit about the game. So we've spent a fair amount of time analyzing it on the show as well. And to give you an idea, we actually we recorded the night that they changed the thick cases. And then the next day they reverted it, but we recorded in between the change. So like we went on record, and we thought it might change, and so we said that, but we were in the middle of that. But BSG's had a lot of knee jerking going on. I mean, everything from ammo, bitcoins, thick cases, bagception, and most recently the percentage of loose loot in lootable areas and weapon crates has now been touched. So like, how do you think this is affecting the game right now?
Man, it's so hard. So I talk with Veritas a lot, who's, a lot more in the circle of, like, he speaks with Nikita and stuff like that. And Nikita said on the podcast, and Veritas has mentioned before, that like they as a development team spend like a third of their total resources, man hours, devoted to just addressing RMT cheating and like server instability, because what in some of these previous huge patches where a lot of people, 30-minute queues, which we don't have anymore, which is great. But like, imagine an entire development team spends 33% of their time. So it's like, it's just impossible to say it hasn't affected the game. You know what I mean? Like, in the team podcast where Nikita came on and really kind of like vented about a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? And somebody asked him Anton, I think, asked him, like, when do you think the game's going to go 1.0? And you could just hear it in his voice. He was like, we were hoping this year, but we have spent so much time. So it's definitely affecting the game. And then, yeah, like we've got a ton of changes going on. And I have a really hard time kind of planting a flag on what I think is like better or worse. And if you watch the podcast, you know, like I is so humbled. Like I really, a lot of times just kind of, I don't vocalize a lot of my opinions unless I'm streaming and chatting. And they made that change. And I was so against that change. Like I took to Twitter and I was like, hey, this kind of is lame. And I stand by a lot of the reasons why, but I made that proclamation out into the world without knowing from their perspective, like why this change was made. You know, the thing is, so many of us look at these changes through the lens of a good-hearted player. It's like, why would they touch GP coins or why would they touch thick items cases? And it's like they like unfortunately have to think through the eyes of the worst of the worst. And so we just stuff that we might not even consider, they're having to kind of be all over. And it really is like it's slowing development. It's affecting gameplay in, like you were saying, numerous ways, like what we can carry, how we carry things, the quest rewards, the progression. And I have a really hard time with it because I know they don't want to be dealing with it. I don't want to be dealing with it, but you know what I mean? It's like, you know, the only thing worse than not being able to get a thick items case is dying to a cheater every day because they cheat so they can make money so that they can sell those things. So like, you know what I mean? So it's like the RMT and the cheating are very linked. I don't know if people understand that. I think they do. Like, you know what I mean? It's like people cheat so they can sell items to you for money. So when you buy those things with RMT, you're funding cheating because that's how they do it. It's like, it's all this one big mesh and it's hard. And even like right before I sat down to the show, I saw Deadly Slav threw up a little poll on Twitter and he was like, what do you guys think about just like getting rid of the flea market? He's like, I don't know what I think either, but he was just like, I want to see the poll because so much of it gets funneled through there. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's hard, man. It's like, it's heartbreaking because I want Nikita to be able to make this game, but it's permeated the whole thing.
Yeah. And it is hard. And we had offline, Ronald and I were talking about this. And I think the biggest challenge in it is not knowing exactly where the game's going to end up in 1.0, right? Because right now it's a seasonal game. Right. And for me, the biggest game that I would relate that to is Diablo 3. And what they've said they want to do is a persistent MMO type game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where the conflict is. Because, like, again, I would look at like Blizzard, which is one of the biggest companies that has both styles of game. Right. They have WoW and they have Diablo 3. And the interesting part in the seasonal version of that, the Diablo 3 method was that game started out with a real money auction house. Then it got rid of that and it went to the auction house, and then they got rid of it completely.
Yep.
And they still allowed trading, and then they got rid of that completely, and they made it so you could only trade with people who were in the raid with you, and you have your own personalized loot. So they went through this whole spectrum that if Tarkov, if they decided like this is going to be a seasonal game, and maybe you have a persistent PMC, and then there's a seasonal one, and blah blah blah, they could go that route. And then you look at a game that like WoW has the MMO side where they have a flea market. They're basically the auction house there, but then RMT became such a big problem that they literally said, we're going to make our own RMT. Like, screw you RMTs, we're just going to do it. So it's like, the hard part is it seems like there's a vision conflict. Like, do they keep developing based on wipes?
Yeah.
Or do they go the persistent route? And it's like, when does that change make it? But it seems like no matter what they decide in the interim, we have this problem of cheating in RMT, which is affecting our gameplay right now.
Man, those are the two extremes. I've even heard those opinions. I heard somebody's like, dude, Nick, they should just sell rubles. Like, because then you get rid of the cheaters, you know what I mean? And then it's, a lot of times it's like, those are the polarizing. It's like, get rid of the flea market. Let's go back to the way it was, or just sell rubles and then get rid of it that way. But it is hard. And you're right. And they have been, I don't know if they have been apprehensive to declare what they want the final thing to be, or if they don't know. You know what I mean? Like I would suspect there's an element of both in there because it's been a very fluid development, right? Like a lot of like really positive things are in the game because they went beta, right? Because we're playing the game and because we're able to see and play these things out. A lot of really positive things are in the game as a result of that. But, you know, trying to look at it from their perspective, you know, they put the flea market in, and, you know, I think, you know, maybe 3 wipes later, you know, the game blew up, the first drops event. And, you know, I always go back to this. Nikita said at one point, he said, if we ever reach 30,000 concurrent players, we'll call it a success. You know what I mean? And we're still 2 years away from 1.0, and there's 250,000 people playing the game on wipe day, I think. Not daily, but on wipe day.
Right.
So it's like, so now and then there was like 6 weeks where like all they were doing was like buying every server available. And it's like, when you look at it from their perspective, there's a lot of things that you can see where it's like, you know, they went from, so y'all started right before the drops event, right? You started
early December,
in 0.12,
yep.
but before the drops event. Okay. In previous wipes, like 11.5 and 11.7, like when it got down to like the few weeks before the wipe hit, there were times where there were like 1,200 concurrent players playing EFT. So like, I mean, it's like, oh, I'm going to go to EU servers today because there's nobody on this server. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So to catapult and the worst that it ever was in 11.7 right before the 0.12 wipe. So 0.12 wipe happened in October. Drops event happened in January. So week 1 of October, there's 1,100 people playing Escape from Tarkov. Week 1 January, there's 200,000. So from a developer standpoint, like at what point does the vision for your game go out the window and you're just trying to like keep the servers alive, like, you know, keep the cheaters out, and then you're 6 months after that, and then where does it all mesh back up of like, we pick back up the vision, and has the vision changed now that there's so many people? So I have no idea, but I would guess that they're kind of going through like an existential crisis on like, they want to wrap the game up. They don't want to develop it until 3047. But at the same time, they want to be true to their original vision. But that vision has to have changed with this many people playing. So, but the term you use, like we're just in the middle, like we're not a seasonal, like officially a seasonal game, and we're not like officially like an open world MMO. We are really in like Tarkov's identity crisis, or its midlife crisis, or whatever you want to call it, where like, I don't know. Here's what I think as a very like soft opinion. Like I wouldn't like fight for this opinion, but like a gut opinion is I'm for whatever sweeping, harsh decision they want to make to like stop RMT and cheating in their tracks for like 6 months to get them back on track. And Pestley kind of threw that out. He was like, hey, would you consider turning the flea market off for a month? Would you consider, and I had been thinking that same thing, like whatever it is, like, I don't care. Like if you wipe me again, even though I'm really close to Kappa, to me, the most important thing is the game. And if the game is like at 60% right now, and it's just never going to get any better, I'm okay with playing it at 30% for a month or two if we can get it to 90% later. I don't know if I represent a majority there. I know what I mean, but like it just really does feel like they need to like regroup, not have to worry about cheaters for a while, talk about what do we want this game to be? What do we have to do to get it there? What things are we trimming? We wanted this feature. We're not putting that in anymore. Okay, we'll turn it all back on now. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of for whatever that is. If it's flea market, if it's, I don't know. It's just hard. I just want them to be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of us share that perspective, and it's not just because we're content creators, you know, in this group, but I think a lot of people who have stuck with Tarkov through this somewhat turbulent time share that desire for the end product to be, you know, developed as solidly as possible.
Yeah.
I think right now, I don't think Battlestate understands what RMT is and what it isn't. I think that the people that perhaps are making the decision on what RMT is and what it isn't, maybe that group needs to have more input, because the drastic swings in strategy that they're doing to try to combat it don't make sense. They really don't. And there's no goal. Even if the goal was to say there's no more flea market, or there's no more items, or there's no more hideout, and the game is just going to be a seasonal shooter, which I don't think they want that. But they're making all these drastic kind of moves to react to cheating, to RMT, whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of games before Tarkov have dealt with this and have just they've worked around it. Every MMO deals with this. And so they figure out ways to get around it. And it seems like at times BSG just doesn't really know, I'm not trying to be negative here. It just seems like at times they don't have a cohesive strategy. Like, it just feels like sometimes we're playing whack-a-mole at the arcade. We're not doing game design for a purpose right now. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting, because like Nikita will come out and say, okay, well, the next round of, labs is going to be behind customs and Streets of Tarkov, right? And you have to exfil from 2 maps to get out of labs. I mean, and that design element is obviously influenced by the fact that they don't want people getting out of labs with a bunch of
farming
gear,
labs,
right? The find and raid change, a reaction to the RMT, which was terrible for the player base, but RMT is in their mind the larger issue. So it's really interesting to me, because from the sidelines, I'm watching them sacrifice large amounts of goodwill on the player base. And when you design a video game, goodwill from the players is probably the hardest thing to build up.
Yeah.
The Franklin Covey emotional bank account, as we like to jokingly refer to it as.
Yeah.
And that well is not infinite, right?
No.
And I guess you have to decide, like, who's RMT really affecting? How many instances of cheating are there really that are affecting? And you got to play the demographics, got to play the large bulk of people, and kind of decide, okay, is the cure worse than the disease? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I've been thinking about this last couple of weeks.
That's a great point. A lot of it is like, so I can actually super duper empathize, like, because you were saying, like, I don't want to be negative, and I don't take that as negative, because, like, I can at the same time, like, pretty objectively say that, like, some of the stuff they're doing is weird, but empathize with why it's weird, right? It's like they were like a ragtag group of, like, Russian indie game devs that, like we said, in 6 months went from, like, like 10,000 people on this earth know what my game is to now, you know what I mean? It's #1 on Twitch, and Dr. Disrespect and Shroud and Tim the Tatman's playing it. Dr. Lupo's playing it. Like, it's like a case of just, like, child stardom. It's like these, and now they don't know what to do. And these guys, like, freak out when, you know what I mean? So that's where we're at. So, like, I totally empathize with the fact that, like, they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to figure out how to navigate a AAA game that they never meant to make, right? Like, you know what I mean? They're at that size of concurrent players and marketing and stuff like that, like, of, like, how many people know them. Like, they're there, but they didn't set out to do that. They didn't know how to do that. They're not trained to do that. So I empathize with that fact. But you can empathize with that fact, but on the other end, you're so right, where it's like, at the end of the day, as long as this game is up, people are playing it, and you're responsible to provide them with the experience you want them to have. And so, like you're saying, you can say both things. You can be like, this is messed up, but at the same time, I understand why it's messed up, but it's your responsibility to find a solution. Like, and that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, it is your responsibility to find a solution. So, but what you were saying was like the whole is the cure worse than the disease. That's a really interesting, like, because I'm always curious as to this kind of stuff. I have seen, and maybe you guys have seen this as well. I have felt like there were a few times where, like, it feels like BSG is very segmented, where like these people work on this, these people work on this, these people work on this. And so a lot of times if somebody brings up to Nikita in a podcast, like, hey, did you know that this is like all messed up? And he'll be like, no, I'll fix that. And it's just like, oh, okay, cool. But I think I've always been curious about, like, whatever it was a few months ago where like everybody, it wasn't everybody, but it felt like everybody was convinced that every time they died, it was a cheater. And that was really hard because Escape from Tarkov is set up that like you don't always get to know how you die. You know what I mean? So the natural way Escape from Tarkov plays, once you start introducing cheating, it's just what everybody's going to say because it's like an excuse. You know what I mean? So like you brought up, I would actually really love to see, like, and I don't even know if they have it, like the actual data, like how many people were cheating. Because maybe if we just, maybe less players were affected by the cheaters than by all these RMT changes. Maybe. And I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting because I don't know because like we all have opinions on the changes that they're making on all the containers and the find and array and all that stuff. But my struggle, like the reason why I always kind of side with BSG on it is I don't know what the other solution would be. Like, what's the other way other than just like kind of leave it alone and hope the cheating doesn't get too bad? It's so hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, one of the things that I just kind of taken a step back and thought about this kind of objectively from a business perspective. The BSG is a small team, right? They're a small team, which means their decisions are more relationally driven than, say, a large AAA company like Activision or, Blizzard or whatever. And I would think that because of that, the relationships that people have directly with Nikita, and that group's even smaller, right? Because you can only have so many people that are influential.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And I don't know this, but I mean, it seems to me like there could be an opportunity for that small group of people to have a large influence on the game. And I just wonder, just, playing the averages, right? I've started to wonder with some of the decision making, if that small group of people, for better or for worse, right? I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying that everybody has their idea in their mind of what Tarkov needs to be.
Yes.
And what it doesn't need to be. Right? Yeah. And I'm thinking that the way some of these decisions have been made, and just watching how it's affected just players in our Exfil community, okay? Just new players in the Exfil community, watching how it's played out this wipe with some of these things, and now we're 6 weeks in or whatever, 7 weeks in. It just seems to me like, okay, either they didn't really think about this from all the different types of players, because remember we talked before, like you can play this game a lot of different ways, and it seems like they didn't flush it out from all different types of players, or maybe they don't have a lot of very variety of play styles represented in that that small group of people. I just know from my own experience that small companies are relationally driven, and a lot of these decisions just feel like they're relational decisions. And I don't know, I just wanted to get your thought on that. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I see what you're saying, and I think I have to agree, right? Like, because like you're saying, you're not, for better and for worse, you're not throwing anybody under the bus, but it's definitely felt like there have been a few times where somebody said they want something and it happens, and sometimes that thing is a great thing. And sometimes it's a great thing for some people, and sometimes it's just not really a great thing at all. And it is hard on multiple fronts. Like you were saying, it's like you don't ever want a super small group of people to represent everybody. You know what I mean? Especially if that super small group of people all tend to think a certain way. The other thing for me, though, isn't necessarily about that small group of people. It's just that, like, Nikita is the one who came up with all this. Like, I want the game he wants to make. You know what I mean? That's just what I want. Like, you know what I mean? I think the one of the quickest things that drains that, like, emotional, you know, that relational currency is like wavering. Like, if you're not steadfast, that it's just like, wait, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there have been a few things. Did y'all see the console? Like, Tarkov is coming to console. It was in a forum thing, and it was like, for like 2 years, all he's ever said was like, LOL, no way. Like, don't stop asking me that question. And then all of a sudden it was like, there are very active conversations about coming to console. And when that's the kind of stuff that people are just like, what? Like, so, but this all drives me back to my point where it's like, what I want is for them to just get back together and decide what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's a blessing and a curse to have a game where you can play any way you want, because anytime they make a shift, it's going to inherently benefit this type of player and hurt that type of player. Like, it's going to be really hard to move the whole ball forward. And I think we're in danger of some real toxicity if we can point that cannon at anybody other than BSG. If we ever feel like JesseKazam said he wanted this and he got it, that's just like that's a potentially toxic thing. Like, the villain, unfortunately, it's got to be them. It's got to be Nikita going, this is a hardcore game. F you, sorry. This is what we want. Because if we start pointing that cannon at other people, it just gets weird. And so it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of disagree on some of that, because while the part I really agree on is the vision of the game, right? And
Yeah.
when you said, like, Nikita thought all this up and we want him to make the game he wants to make, I agree with that. And there's another aspect that the relational side is also really good. And we can point to any number of changes that are directly correlated to people that are in an inner circle, or whatever you want to call it, right? It exists. We know it does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They talk about it. Like, oh, I'm going to text Nikita this right now. Like, well, give me that phone number. Like, give me the number. Give me the number. Right? But
right now.
But, right, just give me the number. I need it. I got some things to say. But I guess the other side of it is that having that relational thing is what we see. And, like, come on. Like, as a content creator, if you say something to a developer and you recorded it, which all content creators do, and then that thing comes true, you're going to talk about it. And you're going to bring it up somewhere. You're going to be like, yeah, I told Nikita that back in January, and I got it on a VOD, right? It's going to come up. But what you're not going to do is, just like we talked about with the person who's played, 40,000 hours of FPS, and they've encountered, 2,000 different ways to fight somebody in a hallway.
Yeah.
So all of the times they died, it's the same thing here. How many suggestions has Pestily, Veritas, Cleaned, Deadly Slab?
Yeah.
How many suggestions have they made and been super passionate about that don't happen?
Yeah.
Okay? And they're not talking about those.
No.
Because they don't get to say, that's because of me. You
Yeah.
got the grenade case because of me.
Yeah.
You guys talked about having the trade window, right? The transferable, like, in between your scav raids. And didn't they just say that they're working on that? Like, you did it, Jesse. You're in the inner circle and you didn't even know it.
We need the number. Give us the number.
Imagine.
Give me the
I
number.
wish I had the number.
So I guess I all I'm saying is that I disagree to an extent, because it's really easy to point fingers at people when they are saying it was me and they're pointing to the things they got done. And I get that. But I also do agree with the point, Ronald, that you made, that I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows, is what player groups are made up of that relational aspect.
Yeah.
Right? And the only thing that I can point to is, like, I have not talked to a developer for BSG about Tarkov. But with PUBG, I talk to developers a lot. We do, because on the other podcasts, we've had them on, we've interviewed them on the show. So have I said something that has influenced development? Maybe. I don't know. Probably. So there's
Yeah.
also that aspect to it as well.
I think it needs to be almost like a cycle, though. And I think that's like the point. It's like, I think they need to like find their foundation again. Like, it's so much has happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they need to have those closed door conversations of like, okay, like we're staring down the barrel of a game that just pulls in 100,000 viewers every day on Twitch and pulls in, 98 to 170,000 average concurrent players. Like, that's not the game we thought we were making. It's the game we're making now. So I think that there needs to be like, it's a back and forth. It's like you can't give everything away. You have to take that time to like come back and be like, well, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like, we see that with content creator burnout, where they just go and then they just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I playing this game, or why am I doing this thing? And then they burn out or get depressed or something like that. So like, I think that's all I'm really suggesting, that there needs to be like a moment or a season of like returning to like BSG. Like, what is this game we want to make? And then I think like, and then the flip side of that, I think like suggestion and feedback, like we were saying, is 100%. It's so good, but I don't know, a way to receive feedback from the entire community, and a way to maybe not make the feedback received so public. Because once again, it's just like, it's so hard when it's like, Nikita, do this. Okay, done. There's just no, you know what I mean? Where it's like, Deadly Slob brought up a point. I think in RuneScape, or an old school RuneScape, they did a thing where it was like a bulletin board or something, and the developers would ask questions about like, what do you guys think about if we changed this? And Deadly Slob was pointing, he was like, what if there was like a place in the hideout where we could just like once a week they put out a thing, and there was like, what do you think about this? And then the whole community gets to like cast a vote, and they can say, F you, we're going to do it anyway, but they at least now know like a representation of everybody. You know what I mean? And like, I remember him saying that on a stream once, and I was like, that's a great idea. Like, they don't have to ask us everything, and they don't have to take what we say, but at least they won't get like surprised. Like, that was the big thing Veritas was saying, is that like Nikita woke up after that thick weapons case change, so surprised that the community would react that way. Now, if you had asked any one of us here how the community would have reacted, we would have all told you exactly what happened. Like, we know. And so it's
Don't
like,
touch my cases, Nikita.
yeah. So it's like, they would have had that. He would have had that information beforehand. If he was like, what do you think if we took those cases away mid-wipe? Now it's just no. You know what I mean?
Right,
And then he
right.
would have been able to either say, he would have either done it and been like, but going back to the reason he did that without telling us is because he didn't want the RMTers to buy up all the cases. That he said that on the podcast. He didn't want them to buy them all beforehand and know it was coming. But there's just a lot of things like that where like, we can help equip them with information they might want to know, which is like how we all feel about something beforehand if they give us that opportunity. So yeah, I didn't want you to think that I meant like I don't like that they receive feedback, or even from a small group of people. I really do. It's just I almost think that they need like a season to return to like, what does BSG want to do?
For me, and even if you didn't like what I said, that's okay too. But I guess what it boils down to for me, and this is the hardest part, is communication. And right, we've got language barriers already. There's translation issues, but it's things like that are challenging are some things just get changed without any sort of direction or end goal. And then we find out about it like, oh, we did that because of this. And then some things are like, oh, LPS, ammo is too powerful. Okay, well, we're just going to up the price now. And it's like, well, what?
Yeah.
It's the communication is interesting. So I think regardless, you guys both made really good points about how this stuff has happened and why, and the business implication and the
Yeah.
relational aspect and all of that. And I think the hardest part, and they're trying to do this, and I respect them for doing it because they are one of the most open companies I've ever
For
seen,
sure.
but they're still not perfect. But it's like, okay, if to your point, like if you're going to really tackle RMT, like why not just say, like, we have to kill this and we need to kill it in 2 weeks. Here's what we're going to do that, and that's going to start happening 2 days from now. Yeah, the RMTers are going to go nuts for 2 days, but
Yeah.
then they don't have the ability to. And then furthermore, then you get to see what they do after that, and you can
Yeah.
track that, and maybe that gives you the ability to isolate them. So it's like, it seems like, to Eric, your point is like, they don't really have a strategy. They
Yeah.
sort of shoot from the hip a little bit. And it just seems like what both of you guys are talking about, if combined, would be what I'd like to see is like, can't you communicate a little bit better on it? And like, like
Yeah.
RMTers are there. It's going to happen. Like if you give them a day to plan and figure stuff out and buy up everything, fine. But 3 days from now, if that's gone, the normal player base is going to be fine. And the RMTers won't be. So I don't care
Yeah.
if they had a day of going nuts.
Yeah.
Like, fine. And then to the other point, like the relational side, like the communication on that is just kind of, it feels weird sometimes that some people can say something and then it gets changed on the spot.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that take forever to change or are still going on. So like there's just this weird balance that I don't
Yeah.
envy them for.
No, for
But-
sure. But inconsistency is what is confusing.
100%.
And then confusion on if your player base is confused, that's not
Yeah.
good.
So I mean, this is a rabbit hole that we kind of enjoy going down because it really does, like, hearing other people's perspective on how it affects your gameplay, right? You talked how it's affecting you, and then
Yeah.
you say how it's affecting your community and kind of your perspective on it, and that's fun. We like to do this,
Yeah.
and it's from a place of like, man, to your point, like, I want the game to be completed. I want it to have progress and for them to feel like it's progressing and to just understand it. Like, I'm not going to agree with every change. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a hoarder. I'm the worst hoarder on the planet. I have more guns in my stash than I can use for the rest of the wipe, but I will continue to put guns there and I will continue to farm
Yeah.
Bitcoin so I can buy more thick weapons cases, and I'm going to stuff them full of stuff. You can better believe it. But then when I hear that I can get banned for giving away guns to my community,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good. I don't like
Mhm.
that right now. But I'm not sitting here like on a huge soapbox saying like this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No,
Nope.
I get it because you communicated why.
Yep.
But that hasn't happened on every issue. And that's where I just think the inconsistencies hurt. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything more in there, but like that's where I'm at with it, is like, I don't agree with every little change. And I
Yeah.
don't need to. And I'm also not going to be super negative on it. Does it hurt the way that I play the
Exactly,
game?
yeah.
Kinda. Do I want to give stuff away? Yeah, I do. But
Yeah.
if I can't for a while because they're fixing RMT, that's fine. I understand that. I know I can't give stuff away right now because I don't want to get flagged.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they fix it and they're like, hey, you can do that again. Okay, let's go.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to remember. Like, you know what I mean? It's such a meme, and almost like a salty meme at this point, that it's like, well, we're still in beta. You know what I mean? People just like, you can't use that as an excuse. You can't use that as an excuse. And it's like, once again, like, at the end of the day, like, as I don't care if you hate or love BSG, like, you're not really going to get anywhere without empathy for how different their life is now than it was 6 months ago. You know what I mean? Or 7 months ago. You know what I mean? To go from 1,100 people playing your game to 250,000 people playing your game. You don't have to be a game developer to understand that changes everything. You know what I mean? And like, I don't, like, people come in and they're like, yeah, well, they've got all this money now. It's like, I don't, just get out of here. Like, you're not looking at the whole picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such a different situation. So like, it's hard to remember that we're still in beta. It's hard to remember that, like, they really don't know what they're doing on a lot of these things. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you can't, like, what I struggle with is like, yeah, you can't really like over empathize with them and just be like, yeah, just figure it out. Like, there's also that line of like, when it feels like we're playing whack-a-mole, when it feels like you're just shooting from the hip, when like, I just cringed when I saw that tweet. I was like, this is a game developer telling me that if I drop a gun to one of my community members, I can get banned. Like, that is just like, so we're in the middle. And I think at the end of the day, like, what I love about this show and what you guys are doing is that, like, at the end of the day, the best thing we can really do is just, like, exactly like you're saying, like, stay positive. It's like, they took away my thick weapons case. That sucks. It doesn't delete the 2,000 hours of amazing memories I have of this game. I will continue to play this game. I will continue to love this game. If I do not love it, I will play a different game. I do not feel compelled to write a 9,000 word Reddit post about why I should be making this game. You know what I mean? We just need more positivity. We need less cesspools of 1,000 people. You know what I mean? Because that's the reality of it, is if you look on Reddit, it's all the game is RMT, cheating, whatever. But we all forget that, like, there's 1,000 posts on Reddit from 1,000 people, and all of them are just posting the one bad raid they had out of the 100. So it's like, when you do the math, there's 10,000 raids happened and 100 of them suck. But we're just lining up the 100 that suck. You know what I mean? And it's like, we need more, like, of the positivity, you know what I mean? Like, I don't run into cheaters, like, you know what I mean? It's just,
well, and that's kind of where this whole thing wraps up, and that I ask people to consider when we really get into it. And I'll be real honest, Ronald's the one that opened my eyes to this, and it's the truth there is that, in general, how much does RMT really affect my personal gameplay?
Yeah,
I really don't know. My gut is very, very little. You know, people with RMT buy the stuff I put on the flea market. Okay.
Yeah.
People with RMT, they may have a little bit better gear in the games that they come into. Well, if I run factory for 4 hours and I had, 80 PMCs on the other side of me in factory, how many of those people are playing RMT or doing RMT?
Yeah.
I don't know. One, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I don't think that's the guy that killed me. Maybe it is. So
yeah,
that's the hard part. And I'd ask people to think about that, is like, does it really affect your gameplay? And then that's what I think BSG needs to consider is, does this really affect the average user's gameplay? You have 240,000 people playing your game. Should you be focused on something that doesn't actually affect a lot of people's gameplay? I don't know. That's a hard question to answer when we don't have the numbers. So I think that's really the feedback that I want to give. And it's, again, these are all really good points, and this rabbit hole's deep. It just is.
Yeah, it just is.
So, like, we're crawling out right now. Like, we see the air. We're going to crawl out. And I want to ask you one last question, and then we're going to give you a chance to kind of promote your stuff, tell people where to find you and all that kind of stuff. But you said something early on that just makes me laugh, and it resonates with me for a number of reasons. But somebody told you to hatchet run factory when you started the game. So you talked about your best tip for getting better at the game. But the last thing I want to ask you is, someone's brand new, they haven't loaded in yet. What do you tell that person to go do? A new person to the game, yeah, introspection's great. Being able to record your game footage, wonderful tip. I agree with it 100%. What does the brand new person do in your eyes? What do you tell them to go do besides die 1,000 times?
Die 1,000 times, then come back to me and ask me questions. No, but the sentiment there actually applies. Like, I've kind of adjusted, because we get those questions a lot, and I've kind of adjusted what I say now. So, like, if you've never played Escape from Tarkov, and especially like you were saying, there really is a big community of people who aren't very experienced in PC gaming that come to Tarkov. It's play offline to figure out the questions you want to ask, then ask them, get them answered, and play online. Does that make sense? Like, the first 10 times, if you've never played Tarkov before, the first 10 times you die, it's almost unfair, because, like, you just didn't know that if you don't bring more ammo. I just played COD and I just keep reloading infinitely. You know what I mean? Like, and if you didn't know that, then you're going to click and then die, and then you just lose that. You know what I mean? So, like, if you don't know anything, play offline with scavs like 10 times, and then, like, ask the questions, because there's a YouTube video, there's a streamer that's live that'll be willing to answer, and there's Discords, there's an infinite amount of places to get those questions answered. by really knowledgeable people. But then you can't rely on offline. Like, you got to die. Like, you got to go lose your loot. But it helps soften the blow if you can ask those questions before you've started losing your loot. You know what I mean?
JesseKazam's all about death.
Dude, it's great. It's I don't think I realized how much I was, but like,
You're wearing black. You're wearing black.
It teaches.
I knew it.
It teaches everything in Tarkov.
It's awesome. So that's great. That's actually, I didn't know what to expect, but I love that. I love that. We don't talk about offline mode enough. It's a phenomenal tool. Just give me the replay system attached to it. Okay.
Yeah. Or with friends. Yeah.
Right. It's a great tool. That's a great tip. So what I want to do, man, is first of all, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking time out of your night. You know, I know you've got the wife, you got the kiddo. Appreciate you coming on. But what I want you to do right now is tell people, and this is not like a hey, get it out in as fast as you possibly can, but tell people where they can find you. Tell people why they should find you. Give them the links. Spell it out if you need to. Promote your stuff, man. Like, what are you doing? Why? Where is it? Any links or projects you've got coming out for people to look forward to? Let them know this is your chance. Like, floor is yours, and just thank you. This has been awesome, man.
Dude, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere is at JesseKazam, but I stream on Twitch, and I try to, like I said earlier, I am not as good as I would want to be putting 2,000 hours in the game, but I almost kind of love that because it's this gradual journey of like learning and growing together and constantly breaking down gameplay. People that can't do that, you know what I mean? So so I stream 5-6 days a week on Twitch, and we do that. The YouTube channel, that all started out of me just wanting to create more guides. You know what I mean? There's just an insane amount of information in Tarkov and an insane amount of ways to explain it and to break it down. So, we started with there, and now we're, like we were saying earlier, I do a lot of stuff that's like strategies and just like things to work on or things to consider when you're playing Tarkov. And then, we've got, a Discord similar to yours, just ready people wanting to play. You can find me on Twitter. And then, you mentioned earlier, but, I'm with Veritas, and we have the podcast. It is weird saying podcast because it just sounds like podcast.
Weird,
dude. And it's like we thought the name, we're like, that's dope. But then you're like, people just think I'm saying podcast. But the pug, you got to put like a space, pug.
Yeah.
Where we do a weekly show as well, and we talk Tarkov and sometimes other games and stuff like that. So but I mean, just in general, the thing to like remember through all this is like, dude, the Escape from Tarkov community is like amazing, and like the number one thing that we've got to like do is like not let the bad apples, the bad players, you know what I mean, ruin that, because it really is a phenomenal community. And I am very humbled that you guys asked me to be on, and I really enjoyed the discussion. I love talking Tarkov, so thank you guys so much.
Well, I'm just going to echo too. Thank you for coming on. I personally was very much looking forward to this, and I very much enjoy your YouTube content. As we talked about a little bit earlier about the content creation piece of it, I really respect what you do, and I really enjoy the style of YouTube that you put out there. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for being with us tonight. And I know that everybody in our community is going to really enjoy this, and I just think it's great, man. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think that's pretty much it, Trigger, unless you have some other pearls of wisdom you'd like to drop on us before the episode's over.
No, man, go play Factory and just don't do it with a hatchet.
Just die. Just keep dying.
Just die and do it with a hatchet, whatever. I mean, if Jesse's right, like, all you have to do is go run Factory 1,000 times with a hatchet and die, and you're good to play Tarkov.
Bro, I've had people tell me that. It's like, no, you have to try, but just try and die. Like, you can't just like just run into gunfire. Like,
that's going to be the title of this podcast.
And thousands of deaths later, you too could be an expert.
Yes, you emerge as Warren.
JesseKazam recommends the secret that BSG doesn't want you to know.
Die 1,000 times.
Funny.
Well, this has been fun. This has been fun, guys. Very much so.
Dude, for sure.
Well,
For sure.
I don't know about you guys. I'm seeing that green bar start flashing across the top of the screen, which means that we are seconds away from disappearing. But before we do, I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to everybody for listening. Remember, you can find the show wherever you listen to podcasts, or on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all of the other crazy places that podcasts are. Once you start publishing a podcast, there's lots of them. And as always, the talk show version of the show will be on youtube.com/XPMediaNow for you to go watch there. So everybody, thank you for sticking with us to this point, and I hope you all have a great week and your raids go well.
See ya. Thanks, everybody.